In the heart of Doka village, where the red earth meets the endless sky, and the sound of talking drums echoes through the evening air, lived the most beautiful woman anyone had ever seen. Her name was Didi, and when she walked through the market with her wrapper swinging like palm fronds in the wind, even the oldest men would pause their games of ayo to watch her pass. Didi had skin like polished bronze and eyes that sparkled like stars reflected in the village stream. She was an orphan with no family, no land and no money. Her stomach often growled with hunger, and her only shelter was a small hut she shared with 3 other girls who had nowhere else to go. To survive, Didi danced at festivals and ceremonies, moving her body to the rhythm of drums, while people threw small coins at her feet. It was during the New Yam festival in a neighboring village that Rugi first saw her. He was 50 years old, a wealthy farmer with arms thick as tree trunks and a laugh that could be heard 3 compounds away. Rugi had sworn to his friends for years that he would never marry. But when Didi spun and leaped to the talking drums that evening, something shifted in his chest, like a door opening after being locked for decades. Three weeks later, they were married. The village women whispered that Didi was only after his money as she was younger than him. But Rugi would laugh and say they were just jealous. Their first son, Buga, was born 10 months after their wedding. Rugi danced around the compound for 3 days straight, sharing palm wine with anyone who would drink with him. Then came Koya, followed by Jogi, and finally, Emeka. 4 strong boys who grew tall and proud like their father. But with each birth, Rugi would ask the same question: when would they have a daughter? Didi would always shake her head firmly and say she would never have daughters. She would change the subject immediately, talking about the boy's health or what she was cooking for dinner. Rugi thought it was strange, but he loved his wife too much to push the matter. What he did not know was that Didi had been pregnant 7 times, not 4. 3 times she had given birth to daughters alone in her hut, and 3 times she had buried them before returning home to tell Rugi the baby had died during birth. There was no way Rugi could find out, as Didi gave birth to her children alone without the assistance of anyone. On the night Miri was born, Didi went into labor and was alone in the small hut behind their main house. But this time, her strength was failing. She had never felt pain like this before. She screamed loudly. Rugi was sleeping when he heard her screaming in a scary way. He immediately called the servant to go fetch the village herbalist. The village herbalist arrived to find Didi unconscious on the mat, a baby girl crying beside her. The old woman lifted the child and smiled at Rugi. The gods have finally answered your prayers. But Didi slept for 14 days straight, as if her spirit had left her body and was wandering in another world. When she finally opened her eyes, the first thing she asked was whether the baby was a boy or a girl. When Rugi proudly told her they had a beautiful daughter, Didi's scream could be heard in the next village. She angrily walked out, leaving Rugi standing there with questions burning in his heart. That was how Miri came into the world. And because Rugi knew about her birth, Didi could not make her disappear like the others. But in her heart, she was making plans. Miri grew up as the light of her father's eyes. Rugi had waited for a daughter, and he treated her like a precious jewel. Her 4 older brothers, already grown men, also pampered her endlessly, and she grew up a happy and bubbly child. But Miri was never close to her mother. From her earliest memories, Didi was always sick, always being carried to one witch doctor or another. Sometimes, Miri would wake in the night to find her mother standing over her with scissors, claiming she was cutting her hair for protection rituals. Other times, she would see Didi holding a pot of smoking herbs over her face while muttering words in a language Miri did not understand. Even as a grown woman of 22, Miri still slept in her father's hut as she was afraid to stay with her mother. One morning, she woke up to find her mother standing over her with a kitchen knife raised high. Didi's eyes were wide and strange, as if she was seeing something that was not there. When Mary sat up in fear, her mother dropped the knife and ran out of the hut. Later, Didi apologized and said she did not know what had come over her, but Mary's hands shook for the rest of the day. One rainy morning, Mary went to serve her mother breakfast as she did every day. She found Didi on the floor of her hut, shaking like a leaf in a storm. Mary dropped the food and ran to get her brothers, Rugi and Emeka, who still lived at home. Rugi lifted his mother with tired arms and complained that he was tired of all the sickness, all the trips to witch doctors. He complained that even their father, who was older, seemed stronger than her. But as they carried Didi out, she looked directly at Mary with eyes that seemed to burn with anger. The look was so intense that Mary had to run outside and lean against a tree to catch her breath. After her brothers left with Didi for another stay at the witch doctor's compound, Mary realized she had not seen her father all morning. The house was strangely quiet, and when she went to check on him, she found him dead in his bed with white foam flowing from his mouth. Mary ran out screaming at the top of her voice. Their neighbors did not come running immediately, as they were used to hearing shouts from Rugi's compound. They only came afterwards, when the shouting seemed more intense. The women consoled her while the men carried Rugi's body away. Buga and Koya stayed for a week after the burial, but they had businesses to run in their villages. Buga offered to take Mary with him, but she said someone needed to care for their mother. As her brothers left the next morning, Mary felt like she was watching her last protection walk away. That was when the real battle began. The first night after her brothers left, Mary started having nightmares so terrible that she woke up screaming. The dreams came every night, each one worse than the last. When she told her brothers about the nightmares, they said it was normal grief after losing their father. But Mary knew these dreams were different. Didi prepared herbs for Mary to drink. After a few days of drinking the herbs, the nightmares stopped completely. Mary felt guilty for doubting her mother all these years. Didi even became kinder, asking about Mary's day and cooking her favorite meals. For the first time in her life, Mary thought she might actually have a mother who loved her. But then, Mary started getting sick. Her head pounded and her stomach felt like it was full of hot coals. Every day she grew weaker until she could barely walk from her hut to the kitchen. One evening, as Mary struggled to eat the soup her mother had prepared, she saw Didi quickly stir something into the pot when she thought Mary was not looking. When Mary asked what it was, Didi smiled sweetly and said it was bitter herbs that would help her get better. Since Mary would not take the herbs separately, for 14 days Mary grew sicker and sicker. On the 14th night, Mary had another nightmare and woke up feeling like her body was on fire. She dragged herself outside her hut to get some cool air, but as she reached for the door, she heard whisperings. She pressed her ear against the wall and heard Didi's voice chanting inaudible words. The only words she could understand were Idi, 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 repeated over and over, followed by her own name. Then Didi broke into a loud laughter. Mary and her brothers had always known her mother was fetish and had strange ways, but this was different. This laughter was scary. She crawled back to her room and lay awake until sunrise, too terrified to close her eyes. The next morning, Mary remembered something her father had told her years ago. There was an old witch doctor who had once treated Didi. After the treatment, she had secretly warned Rugi that his wife was a dangerous witch and that her constant sickness came from the evil she practiced. Rugi had gotten angry and never returned to her, but now Mary wondered if the old woman had been telling the truth. When Rugi came to check on her the next day, Mary lied and said she wanted to visit the market in the next village. Instead, she used her remaining strength to walk to the herbalist's compound at the edge of the forest. The old woman took one look at Mary and shook her head sadly. She told Mary that Didi was indeed a powerful witch. According to their laws, members of this coven were forbidden from raising daughters. Any girl child born to them had to be killed, either at birth or before her 23rd birthday, or the mother would suffer and die a painful death. Didi had already killed 3 daughters, but Mary's birth had been witnessed by others, making it impossible to kill her as a baby. Now, with Mary's 23rd birthday only 17 days away, Didi was slowly poisoning her. On her birthday, Mary would be sacrificed in a ritual that would make Didi more powerful than she had ever been. But there was hope. If Mary could survive past her 23rd birthday without being killed by her mother, the spell would be broken forever and Didi would die. That night, Mary packed a small bag and asked her most trusted servant, a young woman named Ada, to travel with her. They left before dawn while Didi was performing her morning rituals in the forest. After 3 days, they finally arrived at Buga's village. When Buga saw how sick his sister looked, he was sad. She told him everything the witch doctor had revealed, and though it was hard to believe, Buga had always wondered about their mother's strange ways also. He kept Mary in his compound and asked his wife to nurse her back to health, as they gave her everything she needed. Slowly, as the poison left her system, Mary began to look human again. Her cheeks filled out, her eyes brightened, and her laughter returned. Meanwhile, back in Doka village, Didi realized her daughter had escaped when she found the empty hut. She raged like a wild animal, throwing pots and tearing her clothes. The villagers heard her screams and saw her running through the compound, speaking to invisible spirits and pulling her hair. Without completing the ritual, Didi's own powers began to turn against her. The spirits she had served for decades abandoned her, and the evil she had practiced for so long started eating her from the inside. She grew sick in ways that no medicine could cure, and her body began to waste away like fruit rotting in the sun. Within 6 months, Didi was dead. The villagers found her in her hut, her face twisted and her body dried up like an old leaf. They buried her quickly and quietly, afraid that whatever had killed her might spread to them. When news of their mother's death reached Mary, she felt sadness for the woman who could have loved her, but mostly she felt relief. The nightmare that had haunted her entire life was finally over. On her 23rd birthday, they held a small celebration, and as the sun set that evening, Mary felt something change inside her, as if invisible chains had been broken. She was finally free. Mary stayed with Buga and never returned to Doka village, and so Mary lived happily ever after, without fear of anyone after her life.